Are humans being kept deliberately unhealthy?
There is a provocative theory that modern society is keeping humans deliberately unhealthy. It sounds conspiratorial, but we can explore this idea through factual evidence and examples. Consider the technologies being developed to modify weather and block sunlight, and the potential health and ecological impacts of diminishing our sun. Contrast this with how much profit is generated by treating illness in the Western medical system versus holistic Eastern philosophies that prioritize natural wellness. The goal here isn't to peddle conspiracy, but to present documented facts and ask tough questions in a serious, thought-provoking way. Weather modification and sunlight-blocking technologies. Weather modification is no sci-fi fantasy, it's already happening. Cloud seeding is a prime example. By dispersing particles like silver iodide into clouds, humans can induce rain or snow. This technology has been used around the world. In fact, at least 50 countries are already using weather-modifying technology, with China running the world's largest program, aiming to cover about 50% of its land area with engineered rainfall. China has invested heavily, spending over $1.3 billion up to 2017 on cloud seeding efforts that produced an estimated 233 billion cubic meters of additional rain. Beijing even used a 2-hour cloud seeding operation to ensure clear skies for a national event in 2021. The United States and other nations are following suit. 8 U.S. states in the drought-stricken West have started embracing cloud seeding to squeeze out more rainfall. Clearly, the ability to manipulate weather, at least in terms of precipitation, is real and growing. Beyond making rain, some projects explicitly aim to block or dim sunlight on a large scale. Solar radiation management, SRM, refers to proposed geoengineering methods that reflect a portion of sunlight back into space to cool the planet. A key approach is stratospheric aerosol injection, SAI. Aircraft or balloons would inject reflective particles, such as sulfates, into the upper atmosphere to form a hazy shield that dims the sun. This concept is being taken seriously by scientists and policymakers as a possible tool against climate change. It has moved from theory to planning. For example, a Harvard University experiment called SCoPEx was designed to test releasing small amounts of particles in the stratosphere. However, these sun-dimming ideas are highly controversial. Some researchers have even called for a global ban on sun-dimming technologies, warning that we don't truly understand how altering sunlight could affect Earth's atmosphere and life. The SCoPEx project itself faced intense public backlash. When a test flight was proposed in Sweden in 2021, indigenous Sami leaders blasted it as a real moral hazard with no acceptable reasons to proceed, forcing the experiment to be halted. Even though solar geoengineering hasn't been deployed yet, the fact that serious plans and patents exist, accompanied by serious opposition, shows that sunlight-blocking technology is more than just science fiction. It's worth noting that weather modification has a decades-old history, including military usage. During the Vietnam War, the US government ran Operation Popeye, a top-secret project in 1967-1972 that seeded clouds to extend the monsoon season over the Ho Chi Minh Trail and bog down enemy supply lines. In other words, manipulating weather for strategic goals is something governments have already done in the past. Today's efforts, whether to induce rain or to dim the sun, are just the latest chapter, now often marketed as humanitarian climate interventions rather than warfare. But could there be unintended side effects? What happens when we play with the amount of sunlight reaching the ground? Potential biological and ecological dangers of sun dimming. Sunlight is fundamental to life on Earth. If we start blocking it, even partially, there could be serious biological and ecological repercussions. Consider the following potential dangers from a reduction in sunlight exposure. Human health impacts. People rely on sunshine to synthesize vitamin D, an essential nutrient for immunity and bone health. Chronic lack of sun can lead to vitamin D deficiency, which is linked to weaker immune function and higher risk of illnesses. Sunlight also helps regulate our circadian rhythms, the 24-hour internal clock that controls our sleep-wake cycle and hormone release. Dimming the sun or living under perpetual haze might disrupt these natural rhythms, leading to sleep disorders, depression, and hormonal imbalances. It's no coincidence that many people feel happier and more energetic on sunny days. Sunlight triggers the release of serotonin and endorphins in the brain, improving mood and alertness. Without enough daylight, we see higher rates of seasonal depression, SAD, and other issues. In short, less sun could mean a population that is more fatigued, depressed, and immunocompromised. Animals and circadian disruption. It's not just humans, animals rely on sunlight cues as well. Many species' behaviors, feeding, migration, reproduction, are timed to day-night cycles and seasons. Artificially altering the amount of light could confuse these patterns. For example, birds and insects use the sun for navigation and to trigger migrations or breeding seasons. A perpetual cloud could lead to disoriented birds or off-season animal migrations, with ripple effects up the food chain. Nocturnal animals might expand their activity, while diurnal, day-active, creatures could struggle with extended gloom. Plant growth and crop yields. Plants depend on sunlight for photosynthesis, the process that lets them grow and produce food. If you dim the sun, you dim photosynthesis. Historical data gives us a warning. After major volcanic eruptions, which eject sun-blocking particles naturally, global crop yields dropped due to reduced sunlight. One scientific study found that while a cooler climate from aerosol injections might reduce heat stress on crops, the loss of sunlight would largely offset those benefits. In plain terms, solar geoengineering could hurt agriculture by slowing plant growth. This raises food security concerns. Poorer yields of rice, wheat, corn and soy have been predicted under some sun-dimming simulations. Moreover, plants grown under lower light might have lower nutritional value, though research is still emerging. Ecosystems on land and in the oceans, think of algae and plankton, that form the base of marine food webs, could also be disturbed by a change in sunlight. We simply don't know the full cascade of effects, and that uncertainty itself is a danger. Unknown. Chemical effects. Another worry is the chemical fallout from techniques like SAI. Spraying millions of tons of sulfate or other aerosols into the stratosphere might eventually affect air quality at ground level. Rain could become more acidic. Tiny particles could potentially infiltrate lungs or water supplies. Proponents argue the amounts per area would be too small to harm humans directly, but, truthfully, the long-term toxicological impact on people and wildlife is not well studied. Even the engineers of these schemes acknowledge these risks. That's why many scientists urge extreme caution. It would be quite ironic and tragic if a project intended to save us from climate change ended up making humans, animals, and plants sicker in the process. The lack of sunlight alone, if overdone, could create a host of health problems, from depressed immune systems to stunted crop growth. Our entire biosphere evolved under a certain balance of sunlight, and tinkering with that balance could carry a steep price. The business of health, Western healthcare, and Big Pharma profits. If widespread ill health were an outcome, intentionally or not, one group clearly stands to benefit: the healthcare and pharmaceutical industry. In Western countries, treating disease is big business, arguably one of the biggest. To put it in perspective, the global pharmaceutical market was worth about $1.6 trillion in 2023, and it's still growing rapidly. More than half of those drug sales come from North America alone, with Europe accounting for another large chunk, meaning the Western world dominates this massive industry. Likewise, overall healthcare spending in the United States hit $4.8 trillion in 2023. about 18% of the entire US economy. These are staggering numbers that reflect not just the cost of care, but also the revenue flowing to companies in the sector. What about profits? It's no secret that Big Pharma enjoys huge profit margins. An analysis of financial data from 2017-2023 found that the pharmaceutical industry's average net income margin was about 23%, whereas other parts of the health supply chain, like pharmacies, insurers, device makers, had around a 2.3% margin. In other words, pharma companies are 10 times more profitable, proportionally, than the middlemen who distribute pills or the insurers who pay the bills. In practical terms, this means top drug manufacturers rake in tens of billions in pure profit every year. For example, one report noted Pfizer alone made over $31 billion in profit in 2022, buoyed by its vaccine sales. The Western healthcare model is often reactive, waiting for illness to occur and then treating it, rather than preventive. There's a saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. However, prevention, like promoting nutrition, exercise, and yes, sunlight, isn't as profitable as long-term treatments or medications. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a basic observation of market incentives. When industries make billions from chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, or depression, one can see why skeptics worry that there's little financial incentive to truly prevent these conditions. If people remain slightly unhealthy, not dying, but not optimally well, they remain lifelong customers for pills, procedures, and hospital visits. To be clear, doctors and nurses genuinely care about healing patients, and nobody is suggesting that all illness is a manufactured plot. But the alignment of economic interests is troubling. Poor public health means booming business for certain companies. The theory that humans are kept unhealthy on purpose points to this profit motive. And when we consider potential new sources of illness, say widespread vitamin D deficiency or other issues stemming from reduced sunlight, it's hard to ignore how that could feed into the existing healthcare machine. Western healthcare, for all its life-saving advances, is also a money-making enterprise of enormous scale. This fact must be part of the conversation. Eastern and holistic models, a different philosophy. In contrast to the Western model, Eastern medicine and holistic health philosophies have long emphasized natural healing, prevention, and harmony with the environment. Traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, and Ayurveda, the ancient Indian system, both view health as a state of balance within the body and between the body and nature. These systems encourage aligning with natural cycles, day and night seasons, using herbs and whole foods as medicine and ensuring the body gets what it needs from its environment, sunlight, fresh air, clean water. TCM is a time-honored holistic system, over 5,000 years old, that places great emphasis on illness prevention and rejuvenation, seeking to activate the body's self-healing power rather than relying solely on external drugs or surgeries. In practice, this means modalities like acupuncture, herbal remedies, qigong exercise, and massage are used to support the body's innate ability to heal. Modern practitioners of Eastern medicine often aim to help patients rediscover the healing remedies our Mother Nature has given us, integrating natural methods with appropriate modern medical science. A key concept in Eastern thought is balancing opposing forces, for instance, yin and yang in Chinese philosophy, where yang symbolizes the sun, activity, and warmth, and yin represents darkness, rest, and coolness. Health is achieved by maintaining a balance between the two. In practical terms, that means a balance between active work and restful sleep, between exposure to sunlight and time in darkness. It's fascinating that centuries-old medical traditions inherently valued sunlight, yang, as vital to vitality, while also recognizing too much can be harmful. It's all about balance. Likewise, Ayurvedic medicine recommends morning sunbaths as a source of energy and healing, and encourages living in tune with the rhythms of nature. Holistic healers today echo these ancient principles. They stress that true wellness comes from a healthy environment and lifestyle, not from popping pills. Being outside is one of the oldest forms of natural healing, as one naturopathic practitioner put it. This perspective holds that regular sun exposure in moderation is indispensable for robust immunity and mood, that fresh, unpolluted air supports respiratory health, and that nutrient-rich natural foods are superior to processed substitutes. Eastern and integrative medicine models prioritize keeping the population healthy so that disease never gains a foothold, an approach quite opposite to the West's heavy reliance on treating sickness after the fact. Importantly, these models don't generate the same kind of profit for big companies, since you can't patent sunshine or make billions from people simply spending time in nature. The profit in holistic medicine is a healthier society and lower healthcare costs, which benefits everyone except perhaps those selling expensive drugs. Of course, Eastern medicine is not a panacea and works best alongside scientific advances. Few holistic practitioners would deny the usefulness of antibiotics or emergency surgery when needed. The point is that holistic approaches strive to eliminate the root causes of illness, often by aligning human life with the natural world rather than radically altering the environment. They invite the question, if we embraced more of this philosophy, cherishing sunlight and natural health practices, would we be less in need of extreme interventions like geoengineering or so many pharmaceuticals? Conclusion: balancing technology with health. Looking at all these pieces, we return to our initial question. Are humans being kept deliberately unhealthy? There may not be a mastermind twirling an evil moustache behind the scenes, but the facts are eye-opening. We see powerful institutions developing ways to dim the sun, a move that could inadvertently make populations unhealthier at the same time that illness care is a multi-trillion-dollar industry in the West. We see documented programs and patents for weather modification and geoengineering, and we see that keeping people well naturally with sunlight, for instance, doesn't line the pockets of corporations. This doesn't prove a conspiracy, but it certainly raises concern. Even without malicious intent, could a combination of ambitious technology and profit-driven healthcare create a scenario where human health is undermined? It's a serious possibility that deserves public scrutiny. What's clear is that sunlight is non-negotiable for life. Stray too far from it, and humans, animals, and plants will suffer. Any plans to alter our sun exposure, for climate reasons or otherwise, must be approached with extreme care, full transparency, and global consensus. Likewise, any society that cares about its people should question a healthcare paradigm that profits from disease more than from health. Perhaps the solution lies in a middle path, leveraging the best of Western innovation without losing sight of the natural wisdom emphasized in Eastern traditions. Access to advanced medical care and access to clean air, sun, and nature should not be mutually exclusive. In the end, the idea of humans being kept deliberately unhealthy forces us to examine the unintended consequences of our systems. It reminds us that health is not just an individual matter, but is shaped by policies, technologies, and economic priorities. Staying healthy may require defending the very elements that keep us alive, like sunshine, and demanding that our technologies and industries put well-being before profit, whether or not one believes in the theory outright. The evidence we've explored here should prompt everyone to pay closer attention and ask bold questions. After all, our health and the health of future generations could depend on the choices we make today about the environment and the kind of health care we value. It's food for thought, ideally thought taken in while enjoying a bit of good, old-fashioned sunshine.